Dr. Russell points out that in the late 1990s, as the rhetoric became increasingly hyperbolic, obesity was being touted as a global pandemic. In looking for images related to the so-called obesity crisis, much of the dominant discourse can be seen to be focused on the education of children. As teachers, we need to be aware that, as Dr. Russell explains, fat bullying is perpetrated not only by fellow students, but by some teachers, especially physical education teachers and school coaches, who either refuse to intervene, participate in bullying themselves, or otherwise reinforce fat phobia. In this section of the seminar, I will present my own personal story about how fat-phobic education affected me. I want to pause here to give a warning that this portion deals with disordered eating discussion, and if you are sensitive to that content, you may choose to skip this portion of the presentation. I was in high school during the 1990s obesity panic, and in our first week of health class, we were split into pairs and weighed and measured by our partners. Then our teacher had our partners call out our measurements, and she told us our weight status. This use of the BMI is described by Dr. Russell as pathologizing weight. I was labeled overweight by exactly 10 pounds, and the overweight girls were singled out and instructed in ways to lose weight throughout the semester. This was a direct teaching of what Dr. Russell refers to as pressure to conform to societal norms. Dr. Russell describes her struggles with diet culture, and this classroom experience led me to a very long battle with anorexia that began with extreme dieting. After yo-yo dieting, I was obese and stopped eating completely for 6 months. After a while, my mother was concerned about my weight loss, but the doctor specifically said to me, "You could stand to lose more weight." The lack of health care was what Dr. Russell refers to as weight-based depression. Not eating actually very nearly killed me, because I developed extreme vitamin and mineral deficiencies that led to a rare disease known as beriberi, as well as demyelination, which left me with spinal cord damage from the collarbone down. All of this was from a terror of fatness. Dr. Russell quotes Juan as saying, "If we imagine that the conflict is between fat and thin, weight prejudice continues. Instead, the conflict is between all of us against a system that would weigh our value as people." I have labeled these photos with the word fat because that is how I felt, even after nearly dying, and mentally I was at my lowest point. These photos show a fat person, but this person is truly happy. I wish I could go back to that terrified person and tell her fat is not a bad thing. Dr. Russell points out that the use of the word fat is part of a broader conversation about fat acceptance, and fat scholars are reclaiming the word. I am fat. I am seen as unhealthy, even though mentally I am the healthiest I have ever been and have no weight-related issues.